The footage ran 41 seconds. I watched it 4 times on the relay feed in the Cauldron Cross evacuation annex, because I needed to be sure I had not misread the timestamps. 7 people. All unarmed. All carrying diplomatic immunity credentials issued under the Helveth Accords, which the Vethori Compact had themselves co-signed 40 years prior. The execution floor was clean, pale composite tile, overhead lighting set to full white, the kind of antiseptic brightness that said this was not an accident or a skirmish or a misread sensor sweep. This was administered. The Compact's resolution officer read the charge aloud in formal Vethori register before each one. Procedural. Precise. Filed. I ran the evacuation of Cauldron Cross's surviving staff that same afternoon. 32 people through a service corridor and onto a relay tender while the Compact's administrative team was still drafting the jurisdiction claim for the station. We moved quietly, because quietly was all we had at that moment. No guns, no escorts, no fleet in range. The tender pulled away from the docking ring at about the time the Compact's claim transmission reached the nearest relay hub. By the time it reached Earth, the 7 were already entered into the record. The Vethori Compact had been filing things for 400 years. That was the core of who they were, a legalist empire that treated jurisdiction as a weapon and paperwork as the cleanest form of violence. If they could get their administrative stamp onto something first, it was theirs. If you objected, the objection entered a resolution queue, and the resolution queue had a known processing time of between 9 and 14 standard years. They had absorbed 11 worlds that way. Not conquered, filed. They had the patience of institutions and the indifference of a well-maintained machine, and they had looked at 7 human trade arbiters on a neutral station and decided that executing them, broadcasting the footage as a demonstration of resolution authority, and filing the station as compact jurisdiction inside 60 minutes was simply the next administrative step in a long and orderly expansion. They were wrong about a great many things. The one that ended them was this: they confused Earth's silence with an empty queue. I spent 11 months as a ground operations coordinator attached to the pre-positioning effort. My job was logistics on the human side, making sure that every piece of the response that touched a planetary surface or a docking facility moved on time and left no signature in the relay traffic that would tell the Compact what was assembling. It was not glamorous work. It was manifests and transit windows and cover designations for 620 hulls moving through 7 different staging corridors in small groups over the course of nearly a year. The Compact noticed some of it. Their relay intercepts flagged unusual traffic density at 2 of our staging corridors in month 4, and they submitted a formal inquiry through the Helveth Administrative Channel. The inquiry asked whether Earth was repositioning commercial freight capacity in the Helveth corridor and requested a logistics manifest for compliance review. We submitted a manifest. It listed agricultural equipment and long-haul or carriers. Every item on it was accurate, because the cover vessels were real and the agricultural equipment was real and the ore carriers were real. The hulls we were actually moving traveled in their wake, logged under maintenance transfer designations, and the Compact's intake clerks processed the manifests and closed the inquiry inside 3 days. I found out later that the clerks had flagged it as routine and that it had never reached a resolution officer. That was the thing about a machine that ran on procedure. It only saw what it expected to file. I knew what we were building. I did not watch it come together in one place until the morning the reckoning line formed up in the Helveth approach corridor and I was aboard the flagship cairn looking at a tactical display that finally showed me all of it at once. 620 ships is a number that does not mean much until you see the formation spread. Admiral Dace Marrow did not make a speech. He issued a single navigation order and a single communication, and the communication went not to the Compact's military command. They had no military command in the conventional sense, only a resolution enforcement directorate, but to their administrative relay hub at Velith Station, the same hub that had received and processed the Cauldron Cross jurisdiction claim 11 months before. The message was 3 sentences. It informed the compact that the reckoning line was entering their border space under the authority of Article 9 of the Helveth Accords, which permitted signatories to enforce compliance by direct action when the resolution queue had been weaponized to delay accountability for a documented violation. It informed them that the line's targets were the 3 resolution chambers responsible for the Cauldron cross-filing, the 12 drive fabrication facilities that sustained their expansion fleet, and the administrative relay hub at Velith Station itself. It informed them that they had 6 hours to clear civilian personnel from all listed structures before the line began its work. The compact's response arrived in 40 minutes. It was, characteristically, a filing. A formal resolution queue entry, acknowledging Earth's communication and assigning it a processing reference number. Estimated review time, 11 years. Admiral Marrow forwarded it to the record and ordered the line to begin. I watched the first resolution chamber go from the Cairns tactical feed. The chamber at Orith Van was a 3-kilometer administrative complex built into an asteroid body, 17 floors of clerks and filing systems and the resolution officers who had co-signed the Cauldron cross-execution order. We had given them 6 hours. They had used 4 of them to finish a breakfast rotation and process 47 unrelated jurisdiction claims. When the line's lead element reached effective range, the complex was still functioning at full administrative capacity. The targeting package was precise as power plant, communications array, structural load-bearing nodes, and the execution was faster than the targeting package required, because the crews had been running the simulation for 11 months and they were not nervous about it. The complex stopped filing things at 11:14 station time. We moved through the dry fabrication facilities in sequence over the following 9 hours. The compact's enforcement directorate scrambled 3 patrol groups, which arrived at the second facility 17 minutes after we had finished with it and 22 minutes before we reached the third. They did not engage. I learned later from the signals team that the directorate had opened an internal resolution queue entry to process the question of whether engagement was authorized under their charter. It was still pending when the 12th facility went dark. The relay hub at Velith Station was last. It was the one I had been waiting for, not because I am a vindictive person, but because Velith was where the jurisdiction claim for Cauldron Cross had been stamped and forwarded. It was the administrative throat of the compact's entire legal apparatus. Without it, the queue stopped. Without the queue, the compact had no mechanism for absorbing territory, because the only thing they had ever used to hold their 11 worlds was the paperwork. Admiral Marrow gave a second communication to the Velith Station director before we touched it. It told her that every jurisdiction filing the compact had submitted in the past 40 years was being entered into Earth's own record as evidence in a standing Article 9 action, and that those filings would remain in our record indefinitely. It told her that we were not filing a counterclaim on any of the 11 worlds, because the people on those worlds were not the resolution officers who had made the decisions. And it told her that the Cauldron cross-jurisdiction claim, document reference VJC 4471C, stamped and forwarded from Velith Station at 1409 on the day 7 people were executed on a clean white floor, was being closed. She sent back a single line. It asked whether Earth would submit the action to resolution queue review. Admiral Marrow did not answer. He ordered the line to close Velith Station, and the line closed Velith Station, and that was the last outbound communication from Vethori Compact administrative infrastructure for the remainder of the operation. The director's question entered no queue. It went nowhere. That was, I thought, the most accurate summary of what we had done. I filed the operations summary from the Cairns communications room while the line was still in formation in compact space. 39 pages. Every target, every timeline, every hull in the formation. I noted the 6-hour civilian evacuation window and compliance rates at each facility. I noted that the Enforcement Directorate had not engaged and had sustained no casualties. I noted the total time from border crossing to final target, 14 hours and 11 minutes. I filed it to the same relay network the compact had used to broadcast the 41-second footage of 7 people dying on a pale composite floor. The Vethori Compact had 400 years of filings. We answered in one day.